"Sir, please don't fire my mom. She works even when nobody sees." The words didn't rush out of him. They didn't crack or tremble. They came softly, carefully, like someone placing something fragile into another person's hands and hoping it wouldn't be dropped. The boy stood in the hallway outside the executive office, a hallway designed to make people feel small. Tall ceilings, cold marble floors, framed photos of smiling leadership, silence that smelled faintly like expensive coffee. Assistants paused. Security pretended not to stare. Someone's typing slowed to a stop, because children did not come here, and children did not speak like that. The man he spoke to, the one everyone respected and avoided at the same time, slowly lifted his eyes. Andrew Miller, 42, quiet, measured, the kind of man who rarely raised his voice because he never had to. His suit wasn't loud wealth. It was the kind that whispered, "Everything is already under control." He studied the boy for a moment. Wool winter jacket too thin for the season, backpack strap frayed on one side, gloves with worn patches at the fingertips. Not the child of someone who was meant to stand in front of his door. Andrew set his pen down. "What did you say?" he asked gently. The boy swallowed. "My mom works here," he said. "At night. She cleans your offices." He hesitated, then added, "They said you might fire her." He didn't cry. He didn't beg dramatically. He simply stood there, shoulders slightly squared, as if he believed that saying the right words might somehow protect the only world he had. Night arrives strangely in tall buildings. It doesn't fall. It seeps. Elevators grow quieter. Heels stop clicking. Laughter fades. And suddenly only reflections remain. Thousands of windows catching the last ghost of daylight before the city turns into a quilt of lights. That is when Lena arrives. Her shift never begins with applause. No welcome. No good job. Just keys. Keys that open rooms where voices earlier argued about growth charts and future markets. She enters them the way doctors enter hospital rooms. Quietly, respectfully, aware she is stepping into someone else's life. She removes cups with lipstick marks, collects forgotten papers, wipes away fingerprints from glass tables. Fingerprints of people who will never know hers exist. And she does it carefully, not because she loves the job, but because broken things still deserve to be handled gently, even when the thing feels like a life. Her hands ache most nights. Her shoes are old. Her coat is thinner than it should be. But rent requires no explanations. Electricity does not care about dignity. And food never asks whether a person is tired. So Lena works when nobody sees, when nobody notices, when nobody is supposed to remember she was ever there. Her son waits in the lobby most evenings. Thomas, 8 years old, small, observant, quiet in the way children become quiet when they learn too early that adults are already tired enough. He does homework under the dim lamp and pretends he doesn't hear how late it gets. Sometimes he draws buildings, windows, people walking too fast. One night he draws his mother. Not glamorous, not heroic, just real. A woman in a cleaning uniform, holding a mop, standing in a hallway full of doors. He writes on the bottom, "My mom works when everyone is sleeping." He doesn't plan for anyone to see it. He tucks the drawing into his backpack. But papers travel. A guard sees it by accident, smiles softly, sets it aside. An assistant finds it, sets it on the conference table, because it feels like something. Later, Andrew walks in. Late meeting, late decisions. Late coffee. He notices the drawing. He stops. Not because it's beautiful, because it's honest. He stares longer than he means to. For the first time in months, he thinks about who turns the lights off after everyone else has gone home, who empties the trash cans full of urgent ideas, who makes tomorrow look untouched again. He doesn't say anything. He simply folds the drawing once, carefully, and slips it into his briefcase. The next morning, among dozens of emails, there is one simple message. The night cleaner on floor 23 is too slow. Suggest replacing. Replace. 2 syllables. Cold. Efficient. Practical. He has approved things like this before. Without thinking, names dissolve into tasks. Tasks dissolve into numbers. Numbers dissolve into charts. But before he signs, he glances at the corner of his desk. The drawing, a mop, a hallway, a boy's crooked handwriting. He pauses. He doesn't cancel the note. He doesn't approve it either. He just waits. And then, late that afternoon, a small voice appears outside his office. A knock, soft, unsure. His assistant opens the door, and a boy steps forward. The same winter jacket, the same tired gloves. He looks up at Andrew and very quietly says, "Sir, please don't fire my mom. She works even when nobody sees." Everything in the office goes still, because some sentences do not belong to the world of business. They belong to the world of truth. Andrew leans back slowly. "What is your name?" he asks. "Thomas." The boy replies, "I'm 8. Who told you your mother might lose her job?" "No one," he says honestly. "She never says things like that. But I saw the paper on the printer, the one with her name." Andrew's chest tightens. The boy isn't accusing. He isn't manipulating. He's just trying to keep the roof over their heads. "She works so much," Thomas continues softly. "When I sleep, she cleans. When I wake up, she is already tired. Sometimes I think she only sits down on the bus." He pauses, and people pretend she isn't there, like she's invisible, like the building cleans itself. He looks up again. "But I see her." Andrew doesn't speak right away, because suddenly, the gap between his world and this child's world feels enormous. Not rich versus poor, seen versus unseen. He exhales slowly. "Come inside," he says gently. "Sit." Thomas sits carefully, like the chair belongs to a different species of humans. Andrew folds his hands. "I can't promise everything yet," he says honestly. "But I promise you this, I will see before I decide. Not assume." For the first time that day, Thomas nods, not relieved, but trusting that someone finally heard him. And that is where everything truly begins. Not with anger, not with charity, not with pity, but with a boy standing in front of power and reminding it quietly that invisible people are still people. Andrew didn't forget the conversation. He couldn't, not because of guilt, because the boy's words refused to leave the quiet corners of his mind. She works even when nobody sees. That night, he stayed later than usual. Meetings blurred, emails stacked, voices echoed and disappeared. Eventually, the building did what buildings always do after hours. It exhaled. The laughter left first, then the footsteps, then the impatience, and all that remained were lights humming softly, the faint smell of cleaner, and the strange loneliness that only large, empty spaces understand. He closed his laptop and didn't call the driver. Instead, he walked down the long hallway, past glass offices, past conference rooms that looked abandoned after battles. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for. He just knew he needed to see. Lena didn't notice him at first. She was kneeling by the baseboards, carefully scrubbing where the mop couldn't reach. Her hands moved with practiced rhythm. She didn't rush. She didn't drag. She worked like someone who had made peace with the idea that effort was not always rewarded, but respect for work was something she still owed herself. Her uniform was faded. Her shoes were cheap. Her back hurt, but she hummed softly, because silence can feel heavier than exhaustion. She stood, stretched quietly, and moved to the next office. Andrew leaned slightly against the doorway, not wanting to startle her. He had seen employees before, but he had never watched work. The difference was humbling. Lena wiped a table and paused when she noticed something. A broken mug handle in the trash bin. She took it out. Her fingers traced the crack. She looked around, searching for the missing part, found it near the leg of the table, and matched the fracture carefully, as if reuniting two bones. Then she wrapped it gently in paper, so no one would cut themselves, and placed it aside. No one had asked. No one would thank her. The effort would vanish into the next morning. But she still did it. Andrew swallowed. He stepped forward slowly. "Good evening," he said softly. She startled, turned, straightened immediately. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize anyone was still on this floor. I'll be quick." "You're not in trouble," he said. Those words surprised them both, because they were not the kind of words executives usually led with. She nodded politely, returning to work, as if conversation itself felt expensive. He watched quietly. "How long have you worked nights?" he asked. She hesitated. 2 years. "And before that?" "Day shifts. Another company. Didn't last." He didn't press. The story was probably too long, and too old to retell to a stranger. He glanced at the mop bucket, the gloves, the tiredness in her posture. "Where is your son tonight?" he asked carefully. Her expression softened instantly. "In the lobby, doing homework. He doesn't like sleeping alone at home." Andrew nodded. "He's brave," he said. "He came to see me today." She froze, her hands stilled mid-wipe. Slowly, she turned back toward him. "He what?" "He didn't cause trouble," Andrew said gently. "He just wanted to talk." Her eyes flickered with fear first, then embarrassment, then quiet shame. "I will tell him not to do that again," she said quickly. "He shouldn't disturb people like you." "He didn't disturb me," Andrew interrupted softly. Silence stretched between them. "He was protecting you," Andrew continued, "in the only way he knows how." Her shoulders collapsed slightly, not dramatically, just truthfully. She pressed one palm against the edge of the table, as if steadying herself. "I don't want him to grow up thinking the world owes him anything," she whispered. "I want him to work, to stand on his own feet, to never beg." Andrew studied her carefully. "He did not beg," he said quietly. "He asked that you be seen." Those words landed somewhere deep inside her, a place she had stopped visiting years ago. She blinked once, then returned to her work, not avoiding, just surviving. An hour later, Andrew walked back downstairs. Thomas sat on a lobby couch, head tilted back, mouth slightly open, asleep with a pencil still in his hand. His backpack leaned against his leg, like a small animal guarding him. Andrew sat across from him, folding his hands. He wasn't used to waiting on anyone, but he waited. When Lena finished and came down, she paused at the sight, her son asleep, the CEO sitting nearby. She approached quietly. "I'm sorry if he was in the way," she whispered. "He wasn't," Andrew replied. She gently shook Thomas's shoulder. "Sweetheart," she whispered. "Time to go." He blinked awake, recognized the man, straightened instantly. "Sir." "Hello." Not afraid, not casual, just respectful. Andrew smiled slightly. "E. Thomas." They stood awkwardly in the middle of the lobby. Three people who never should have crossed paths, but somehow had. Lena held Thomas's backpack. He tugged at his sleeves. Andrew cleared his throat. "Your mother is not being fired," he said calmly. Lena froze. Thomas's eyes widened. "She isn't perfect," Andrew added honestly. "None of us are, but she works with care, and I have neglected to appreciate that." Lena swallowed. "Thank you," she said quietly, "but please don't keep her because of pity. If you need someone faster, stronger." "No," he said, shaking his head. "Not pity. Correction." Something subtle shifted. Trust didn't appear, but the fear loosened, just enough. The following week, Andrew did something unusual. He walked the building at night, not once, not as a gesture, several times. He saw other cleaners, some rushed, some careless, some tired in the way that makes people rough. But Lena worked as if every surface carried someone's story. She straightened chairs with gentle precision. She folded blankets left by exhausted assistants. She placed forgotten water bottles near door handles so people would find them easier in the morning. Invisible kindness, undocumented care, and slowly, a different question began to grow in Andrew's mind. What if the people we treat as replaceable are the ones holding the whole structure together? Another meeting came across his desk. Budget cuts, night staff reduction. 3 signatures would make it final. He sat there, staring at the numbers. Then he picked up his pen and wrote something different. Not poetic, not dramatic, just clear. Before removing people, spend 1 week shadowing them. Document what disappears when they do. He sent it. He closed his laptop. He leaned back, and for the first time since he became CEO, he realized how much of his success sat on the shoulders of those whose names he never learned. A few evenings later, Thomas waited again, but this time, Andrew approached first. He sat beside the boy. Thomas looked up cautiously. "I saw your drawing," Andrew said. Thomas flushed. "That wasn't for anyone." "I know," Andrew replied. "It was honest." Thomas shrugged. "Mom says if something is true, it doesn't need to be loud." Andrew smiled faintly. He glanced toward the revolving doors, where December wind pressed snowflakes against the glass. "Do you like Christmas?" he asked. Thomas thought for a moment. "I like lights," he said. "They make dark places feel like they forgot to be sad." Andrew absorbed that. Simple, profound, quiet. He nodded. Then, almost reluctantly, he asked, "What do you want most this year?" Thomas didn't answer right away. He didn't say toys, or games, or anything children are expected to say. He looked at the floor, then up again. "I want my mom to sit down sometimes." The sentence landed like a weight, not heavy because it was dramatic, heavy because it was honest. Andrew didn't promise anything. He simply placed his hands together and listened, really listened. And in that moment, without speeches, without charity, the story changed direction. Not because a millionaire decided to save someone, but because a child told the truth. And truth is the one thing powerful enough to rearrange how a person sees the world. Those words did not disappear. They lingered. They followed Andrew into boardrooms, into quiet car rides, into evenings where expensive silence echoed off walls too tall for comfort. People think powerful men forget quickly. They don't. They just learn to bury. But some sentences resist burial. They stay. Winter tightened around the city. Snow began to collect along building ledges, softening the hard shapes of everything. The office lobby turned into a small universe of coats, scarves, tired faces, and deep breaths before the cold walk home. And every night, at approximately the same time, Lena arrived. Same uniform, same careful posture, same quiet dignity. Sometimes she walked in with Thomas, sometimes alone, but always with the same expression. Determined calm, not happy, not broken, just steady. Andrew began to recognize the rhythm. Lights dim, screens sleep, footsteps fade, and somewhere in the echoing stillness, the sound of a mop bucket rolling became the heartbeat of the entire building. He watched sometimes, without announcing himself, not spying, not evaluating, learning. He saw her pause occasionally to stretch her hands. He saw the way she checked the floor twice before turning off a light. He saw how she moved around people's desks, like walking through lives she wasn't allowed to disturb. And she did all of it, without expecting to ever be seen. The board meeting arrived. Dark suits, cold conference table, high windows watching the snowfall, spreadsheets projected, laser pointers cutting numbers into pieces. Night cleaning labor is excessive, one executive said. We can automate most of it. Hire cheaper contractors for the rest. Someone else nodded. Someone shrugged. Someone said, people don't notice cleaners anyway. The room hummed with casual certainty. Andrew listened. Then he placed his hands flat on the table and spoke quietly. That's the problem. The room shifted. He rarely spoke that softly. What do you mean? One board member asked. Andrew didn't raise his voice. We built a culture where the only people who count are the ones whose names appear on slides. Everyone else carries us, silently, and we pretend they're optional. A few exchanged glances. Andrew, another member said gently, we're running a company, not a philosophy seminar. He nodded. I know. Then, I spent the last month here at night. That stunned them. You what? He didn't dramatize. I walked floors. I watched work. I noticed things no automation could possibly replace. He clicked a small remote. The slide behind him changed, but not to numbers. Photos, not staged, not art, just truth. A carefully wrapped broken mug so no one cut themselves. Chairs lined perfectly. Forgotten sweater placed neatly over a chair rather than thrown in lost and found. Notes straightened. Blankets folded in the small nap room. Each image quiet. Each image human. This is what disappears when we remove unseen people, Andrew said. Silence stretched across the table. He continued, efficiency should not erase dignity. A long pause. Finally, one of the oldest board members sighed softly. Fine, he said. No cuts, but we reevaluate roles later. Not victory, not triumph, just space. enough for something to breathe. That evening, Andrew found Lena wiping fingerprints off a glass wall. He approached slowly. "I wanted to tell you something," he said. She nodded, not stopping her work. "You're not being reduced. Your team isn't being cut." She froze. The cloth hung in her hand. "Why?" she whispered. He could have said numbers. He could have said optics. He could have said corporate reasons. He didn't. "Because what you do matters," he answered. "Because this building functions because you respect it." She blinked, and for the first time, the armor of restraint cracked slightly. Just slightly. "Thank you," she said softly. "Then, I will work harder." He smiled gently. "You don't need to work harder, Lena. You need to be allowed to work without fear." Her hands trembled just once, then steadied. December deepened. Lights appeared in windows. Small wreaths, strings of warm gold, paper stars. Not luxury. Warmth. Real warmth. Thomas seemed to grow quieter, not sadder, calmer. His posture changed. The way children change when they realize adults are listening. He waited in the lobby with books and notebooks. Security guards began to greet him by name. "Evening, Professor," one teased. Thomas smiled. "I'm not a professor." "Not yet," the guard replied. Andrew sometimes sat across the lobby, not near enough to intrude, just there. He watched the boy outline math problems, then draw small diagrams in the margins. Machines, buildings, rooms that had enough chairs. One evening, Andrew sat next to him. "Homework?" he asked. Thomas nodded. "Geometry. Like it?" Thomas shrugged. "I like that it makes sense. Lines don't lie." Andrew considered that. He looked at the boy's face, serious, still a child, but shaped by responsibility too early. "Thomas," he asked quietly, "what do you think your mom is best at?" Thomas answered immediately, "Showing up." The answer stunned him. Not kindness, not cleaning, not work ethic. Showing up. "That's rare," Andrew said softly. Thomas nodded. "She doesn't disappear when things are hard. She says people who stay are the ones who build anything important." Something settled in Andrew's chest, a truth he had not known he was missing. A week before Christmas, a storm hit. Heavy snow, sharp wind, city slowing down. Many executives stayed home. Lena did not. She pushed through the wind, coat too thin, boots cheap, breath visible. She arrived soaked around the edges, but she smiled faintly and went to work. That night was different, though. The building felt softer. Someone had placed small poinsettias near the elevators. A modest Christmas tree stood in the lobby. Not glamorous, not corporate perfect. Simple, warm. Thomas stood beside it, studying the ornaments. He touched nothing, just looked. Andrew approached. "What do you think?" he asked. Thomas tilted his head. "It looks like it's trying," he said. Andrew laughed softly. "We all are." He hesitated, then handed the boy a small paper bag. "For your mom. For later. Not a gift. Just dinner. She skipped yesterday." Thomas stared, then nodded solemnly. "I won't tell her it's from you." Something inside Andrew flickered. Trust. Not ownership. Not gratitude. Just a secret kept for the right reason. Later, Andrew walked into one of the offices. Lena was there, wiping window frames. He leaned against the doorway. "Do you ever rest?" he asked gently. She smiled without humor. Rest is expensive. He didn't correct her. He didn't offer money. He simply asked, "What was your job before this?" She paused. "Accounting assistant," she said. "Small firm. My husband left. Bills stayed. I needed something fast." He nodded slowly. "You miss it," she considered. "I miss thinking," she admitted quietly. "Here I move more than I think. But movement pays." The honesty was quiet, not bitter. He looked around the office. Spreadsheets, reports, documents, then back at her. "If there was training," he asked softly, "something flexible, something safe, would you want it?" She froze, unsure. "Wanting makes life harder," she whispered. "It reminds you what you don't have." He didn't rush. "I'm not promising anything today," he said carefully. "But I'm saying you're allowed to imagine again." Something flickered. Not hope, permission. She swallowed and went back to work. But her hands moved differently. Not lighter, just less resigned. Christmas approached slowly, not with fireworks, with small things. Warm cookies in the lobby for night staff. Hot tea left near the janitor's closet. A sign that said employees only, all employees welcome. The kind of gestures that don't fix everything, but they change air, they change posture, they change breath. Lena noticed. She noticed people saying thank you more. She noticed managers greeting instead of walking past. She noticed the way the building, for the first time, felt like something she belonged to, not something she simply survived inside. One evening, Andrew found Thomas sitting cross-legged on the floor near an outlet, charging his mother's phone. "What are you drawing?" he asked. Thomas turned the notebook. It was the building, floors stacked neatly, with tiny figures in each office. Executives, assistants, security, cleaners, everyone the same size. "You made them equal height," Andrew observed. Thomas nodded. "Because walls don't stand if some bricks think they're more brick than other bricks." Andrew stared. Then quietly, "You're going to do something important one day." Thomas shrugged. "I just want people to stay." Christmas Eve. Snow fell quietly, blanketing everything beneath silence. Most lights were off. Most people were home. The building felt sacred in its emptiness. Lena finished early. She wiped the last surface, turned off the last light, and leaned against her mop handle just a second longer than usual. Her back ached. Her hands burned. But her face, it wasn't heavy. It was still. Thomas approached. "Mom." "Yes. Can we just sit?" She blinked. He pointed toward the lobby chairs. "Just 5 minutes." She hesitated instinctively. Work taught her sitting equals laziness. But then she remembered Andrew's words. "You deserve to work without fear." So she nodded. They sat, not speaking, not rushing, just breathing. Felt strange, like breaking a rule. But it also felt like something softer, permission to exist, without constantly proving the right to be there. They sat until their shoulders relaxed, until their minds slowed, until sitting became simply sitting. And in that quiet moment, Andrew walked out of the elevator. He stopped. He didn't intrude. He simply watched. A mother and son resting, not by accident, not in exhaustion collapse, but intentionally. He approached gently. "Merry Christmas," he said softly. Lena stood quickly. He shook his head. "No. Stay, please." She nodded slowly. He handed her an envelope. She tensed. I don't want charity, she whispered. It's not charity. She opened it cautiously. It wasn't cash. It was something else. Printed schedule. And a letter. She read. Her eyes moved slowly down the page. Night shift reduced. 2 stable evenings off each week. Paid training program starting January. Basic accounting support. Digital database work. Flexible hours. Optional. No penalty for refusal. She stared. I don't understand, she said. Andrew sat beside them. This isn't a promotion, he said. It's a bridge. You shouldn't stay unseen forever just because you had to survive in the dark for a while. She shook her head, not rejecting, just overwhelmed. I might fail, he nodded. You might, so might I. But failure with a safety net is different than failing on concrete. Her fingers trembled. Thomas watched silently. His face didn't glow with excitement. It softened with relief, like breathing after holding breath too long. Lena closed the envelope, held it against her chest, and finally whispered, "Thank you." Not desperate, not small, grateful, but standing. Andrew looked at Thomas. Your mother isn't being fired, he said gently. She's being trusted. Thomas nodded slowly. That's better, he replied. And for once, Andrew had no clever answer, just warmth. Later that night, as they stepped outside, snow swirled gently around street lamps. The world felt quieter, not magically fixed, not suddenly perfect, but steady. They walked toward the bus stop. Thomas slipped his hand into his mother's. Mom, yes. Can we put lights in the window this year? She thought. Bills, food, rent. But then she remembered, sometimes light isn't luxury. Sometimes light is survival. Yes, she said softly. We can. He smiled. Not wide, not giddy, peaceful. And in a penthouse across the city, Andrew sat at his desk. No champagne, no party, just a room full of silence. He opened his cabinet door. Pinned inside now, a torn sticky note, a simple sentence. The boy's handwriting. Please don't fire my mom. She works even when nobody sees. He didn't frame it. He didn't display it. He kept it where only he would notice. A reminder, promise, a direction. He leaned back, watching snow fall outside, and finally understood something. Power isn't fixing everything. Power is refusing to look away. Christmas didn't change the world, but that night, 3 different hearts slept differently. A mother who finally felt less disposable. A boy who realized truth could move mountains quietly. And a millionaire who learned the difference between helping and honoring. And sometimes that's enough for a story to end. Not loudly, just right.